I walked in on my wife cheating with her best friend's fiancé, and my world shattered in an instant. For years, I thought I had a stable, loving marriage. We weren't perfect, but we had built a life together that seemed secure. 2 kids, a cozy home, supportive friends, and a bond that I believed could withstand almost anything. I trusted her implicitly because love, at least to me, meant trust. But one Sunday afternoon changed everything. It started with subtle signs that I ignored, convincing myself they were trivial. She became more secretive with her phone, texting in private corners of the house. Her wardrobe suddenly shifted toward outfits I didn't recognize. She spent more time with her best friend Sarah and Sarah's fiancé Ryan than usual. At first, I rationalized it all as normal socializing, but there was a tension in the air I couldn't shake, an unspoken energy that hinted at deception. That afternoon, I returned home early from work, hoping to surprise my wife. I had planned a small celebration for our anniversary, a quiet dinner, just the 2 of us. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed her car was gone, alongside Ryan's. My heart sank slightly, but I told myself maybe they had errands to run. Yet there was a light on in the house and faint laughter echoed from the living room. That's when I made the mistake, or perhaps the revelation, that would forever change my life. I opened the front door and called her name. The laughter stopped abruptly. Footsteps rushed across the floor. And then I saw them. My wife, the woman I had promised to love and protect, was entangled with Ryan, her best friend's fiancé, on our living room couch. Their hands, their lips, everything about them screamed betrayal. I froze, unable to move, as if my body had been betrayed before my mind had caught up. Time seemed to stop. The scene played out like a cruel film in slow motion. They didn't even notice me at first, lost in each other, in a moment of lust and secrecy. The shock was physical. My chest tightened, my hands trembled, and bile rose in my throat. I wanted to scream, to charge in, to destroy everything in sight, but instead, I remained quiet, watching, gathering the weight of every deceitful act she had committed over the years. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes widened, recognition and panic flooding her face. "Oh my God, you weren't supposed to," she stammered, failing to explain, failing to justify. I didn't give her the chance. Words wouldn't suffice. Action was the only truth she would understand. I grabbed my phone and called Sarah, her best friend, the woman whose trust had been shattered even before mine. I stayed calm, letting the panic rise in my throat, and told her everything. She didn't believe it at first, but the sound of her voice cracking, the disbelief turning to fury, was confirmation of my suspicions. With Sarah on her way, I acted quickly. I grabbed my camera and filmed the scene, not out of vindictiveness, but as proof, as a record of the betrayal. When Sarah arrived, accompanied by her parents, the chaos erupted. My wife and Ryan scrambled, their excuses failing before the evidence. Words turned to shouting, shouting to tears, and tears to absolute devastation. The wedding, which had been scheduled for 6 weeks later, never happened. Invitations had been sent, plans finalized, but in that moment, I became the agent of truth. I showed Sarah everything, left no detail hidden, and watched as the world my wife had carefully constructed crumbled. She had cheated not just on me, but on her friend, on the people who loved her, and in doing so, she had destroyed her future with both of us. I didn't wait for apologies. I didn't allow explanations. There was nothing left to salvage. That night, I packed my belongings and moved out of our home, leaving her to face the wreckage she had caused. Divorce papers followed swiftly. I didn't negotiate, didn't argue over property, didn't linger in legal limbo. The betrayal had been absolute, and so was my response. I severed ties completely, ghosting her from every aspect of my life outside the legal necessities. The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork, emotional recovery, and rebuilding. Friends who had taken sides distanced themselves, some in shock, some in disbelief. My children were my anchor. I focused on them, their routines, their school events, and their need for stability amidst the chaos. Despite the pain, I refused to let them see the full depth of my heartbreak. I became their constant, the unwavering presence in a world turned upside down. The irony was sharp. She had sought excitement, passion, the thrill of secrecy, and ended up with humiliation, social ostracism, and a divorce. Her affair partner disappeared from the picture as quickly as he had appeared, leaving her to face the consequences alone. The wedding she had dreamed of, the life she had schemed toward, all lay in ruins. In the aftermath, I realized the power of controlled revenge. I had not resorted to violence or public shaming for entertainment's sake. Instead, I had let truth, exposure, and the unavoidable consequences of her actions deliver justice. Watching the plans collapse, watching the people she had betrayed confront the reality she had hidden, was more satisfying than any confrontation could have been. Months later, I rebuilt my life. I moved into a smaller apartment, kept the children with me on weekends and holidays, and focused on personal growth, work, and emotional healing. The pain lingered, but it dulled over time, replaced by clarity and a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. I didn't dwell on her absence. I had removed toxicity from my life and replaced it with stability and honesty. Sometimes people think revenge is about anger, shouting, or public spectacle. But true, lasting revenge is about reclaiming your life, reclaiming your dignity, and letting the betrayer experience the natural fallout of their own choices. My wife had sought passion at the cost of loyalty. I chose peace, certainty, and the protection of my children. And in doing so, I became untouchable in ways she never could be. Looking back, the lesson is clear. Betrayal leaves scars, but how you respond defines the rest of your life. I could have raged, screamed, or destroyed her socially. Instead, I exposed the truth, withdrew entirely, and rebuilt myself from the wreckage. That choice was my power. That choice was my revenge. Today, my children and I are thriving. The memories of the betrayal are still there, etched into my mind, but they no longer dictate my emotions. I am free from deception, free from lies, and free from someone who thought they could take everything I built and replace it with secrecy. My wife? She faded into the background of our lives. The affair ended. The wedding never happened. And the life she imagined for herself, the life built on deceit, was gone. I didn't have to chase her down, confront her endlessly, or seek validation through others. Silence, withdrawal, and truth accomplished what anger never could. Sometimes the most powerful action isn't noise, it's absence. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't chaos, it's the quiet reclamation of your life. Walking in on her betrayal broke me for a moment, but it also gave me clarity, focus, and a renewed commitment to my children and myself. Cheating is never just a personal betrayal, it's an intrusion into every aspect of life: trust, family, and self-respect. By taking control of the aftermath, I ensured that the consequences were proportional, unavoidable, and lasting. And in the silence that followed, I found freedom. The house we shared is now hers alone, empty of me. I ghosted completely, severed the ties, and moved on. No confrontation, no screaming matches, no lingering bitterness to poison my days. Just clarity, dignity, and a future built on my terms. Walking in on her that day was a shock, a heartbreak, and a turning point. But leaving her to face the consequences and walking away with my peace intact was my triumph. Life moves forward, and in that movement, I reclaimed everything she had tried to steal with her deceit.